Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video on the channel as Arsenal just played out a 1-1 draw against Atletico Madrid in the second semi-final of the Champions League, a game that we knew would struggle to meet up with what we saw yesterday between Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich. But in its own way, in its own unique way, it was a compelling game that I actually found quite interesting. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome. If you're a returning member, welcome back. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you guys are enjoying what you're seeing, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I can't do it without your help. So as I said, if you enjoyed the content, subscribe. It's free. This game was exactly what you would expect coming into it. We all knew what these two semifinals were going to look like. Bayern Munich versus Paris Saint-Germain was going to be high scoring, exciting, attacking football, while Atletico Madrid versus Arsenal, as many have called it, would be the haram ball derby. But I think the first half was exactly what we thought it would be. I think the first half was what we thought this entire game was going to be. Cagey, intense, tactical, back and forth, and not in the exciting way that we saw between Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich, but more in the sense of teams having moments of momentum, the other team having a bit of time with the ball, the other team being a bit under the cosh in a way. And the first half, you saw Atletico Madrid set up with that five-man defense. Of course, on paper, it's set up as a 4-4-2. But whenever they don't have the ball, Giuliano Simeone is playing as a right wing back. We saw it against Barcelona as well. Hincapié was making those incisive runs into the half channels, into the half spaces that we've seen throughout the season from Hincapié and from Arsenal. And that essentially meant that Llorente would have to tuck into the defensive three in a way, which meant that Giuliano Simeone was basically your right wing back. Lookman was the out ball on the left-hand side, and your two strikers in Alvarez and Griezmann. The game plan in the first half was pretty clear from both sides. Atletico Madrid were doing their best. Of course, coming out from kickoff, they were very intense. The crowd was bumping. For some reason, they were throwing tissues. Not really sure what that means. If there's any Atletico Madrid fans that watch my games, if you guys could educate me on what the tissues mean, I don't really know what it means. Atletico Madrid in the first half sat deep, soaked up pressure, and really just allowed Arsenal to have the ball. After those opening 10 minutes of chaos, Arsenal started to grow into the game, started to have a bit more of the ball, started to dictate the way the game went. But as you would expect from Arsenal, and as we've seen multiple times this season, it's a lot of huffing and puffing and no real end product. Martinelli and Madueke in this game, I thought Madueke started the game pretty well, but after a few dribbles in the opening 10-15 minutes, he kind of died out. I thought Victor Gyökeres in the first half did his best. He huffed and puffed, but no real threat from Arsenal in the first half. And really and truly, after the first half, you're watching it and you're thinking, is this really what we're going to have to be subjected to for 180 minutes, potentially even more? I will not be there. But towards the end of the first half, I thought you started to see a bit more technical quality from Arsenal. I thought the penalty that they won, contentious or not, I thought it was really good play to build up into that goal because Atletico Madrid are a very, very, very defensive side. I know a lot of people will tell you that they don't play as defensive as they probably used to when they were at their peak with the likes of Godin and Miranda and the like. But this is still a team that is inherently defensive-minded. And to be able to play that sort of intricate play in that first half that they did, particularly for the goal or for the penalty, Odegaard into Zubimendi, into Gyökeres, and winning the penalty, I thought that was a slight glimpse of quality in the first half. Finally, Arsenal go 1-0 up going into halftime. And going into the half, Atletico Madrid knew that they would have to come out in that second half. Being the home side in the first leg, you have to lay down a marker or even create something to take back to London. And they did exactly that because in the second half, Atletico Madrid completely changed the way they played. And I think it just ties into the fact that Atletico Madrid is a team of moments, which is why in the cup competitions, Atletico Madrid are a much better side than they are in the league. I mean, they're 25 points behind Barcelona in La Liga, and they knocked out Barcelona from both cup competitions this year. And in that first half, when they started the game, they took off, I believe it was Simeone and then Llorente. They went to a flat back five. At this point, it wasn't a 4-4-2 that would then go into a back five. It was a flat back five with Llorente playing as that wing back. And once that second half started, the crowd was bumping. Atletico Madrid were flying. Atletico Madrid were intense. Atletico Madrid were hungry for that equalizer. And sooner rather than later, it came. I mean, even before the goal came, you had that Lookman chance where he shoots it straight at David Raya created. And then you have that goal or the chance straight after that Griezmann then has, the David Raya palms out for a corner kick. And in those moments, you're starting to see the pressure ramp up. Arsenal are flying into tackles. Arsenal are blocking shots. Atletico Madrid is creating chances at will. The crowd is getting invested. Diego Simeone is running around the touchline as he always does. You felt like the goal was coming. And ultimately, the goal came in a way that we probably didn't expect. Atletico Madrid get a corner kick. Llorente gets the ball on the edge of the box, and it's a penalty for Atletico Madrid after a handball they claim by Benjamin White. Now, the penalty is, some people will say it's contentious. Some people will say it's clear cut. In my opinion, I do not believe it's a penalty. Once again, just as we saw yesterday in the Paris Saint-Germain Bayern Munich game, the ball comes off of Ben White's knee before it hits his arm. The commentators were saying that his arm was in unnatural position. I don't know where else a defender is supposed to put his hand when he's trying to block a ball by... I'm not gonna do a schematic for you guys. You guys get what I'm saying. I don't really understand these handball rules in the box when it comes to penalties. It feels as though if your hand is anywhere other than like this, which is also not an unnatural position, then they're going to give it as a penalty. Even though there used to be a rule, or now they're saying the rule's been changed. I don't know. I'm not a referee, but now they're saying the rule's been changed. The rule before used to state that if it hits any part of your body before it hits your hand, then it's not a penalty. But we saw it yesterday. That wasn't the case. And today, again, it wasn't the case. I guess the only redeeming factor is that they're consistent. Both incorrect decisions, in my opinion. But if the law has changed, then I guess they're correct. But they're consistent, both incorrect. So fair enough. Of course, that goal that Atletico Madrid scored livened up the stadium, livened up the team. And for about 10, 15 minutes, you're thinking Atletico Madrid might start to run it up here. But it's in those moments where I think we criticize Arsenal a lot as a team, right? They don't play the best style of football. But one thing you can really give to Arsenal, and which is why I've been so disappointed with the way they've been playing these past few weeks, is when Arsenal needs to dig deep defensively, this team knows how to dig deep. They know how to dig deep. And that's why when you look at them lose to a team like Southampton or lose to a team like Manchester City, I'm not saying Man City are bad, or lose in the Carabao Cup final the way that they did, or lose to Bournemouth the way that they did, it just feels kind of disappointing, because even though Arsenal for a long time we've criticized the attacking areas of the field, that's been a given. But the defensive side of things, you felt there was a floor with Arsenal, where Arsenal could play an average game of football, which today, in my opinion, they did not play that well. They had good moments, but they were all right. They were like maybe a 6 out of 10, 6.5. They didn't do anything special today, right? But that defensive structure that you have, that goalkeeper that you have, it allows you to play at a certain level and still be able to get results. And that's ultimately what they did today. They dug in for those moments. And the man who was running it all, oh my goodness, Antoine Griezmann. Look, this is the last dance for Antoine Griezmann. I think he's finalized his move to Orlando City at the end of the season. And it's over 10 years he's played now for Atletico Madrid. Unfortunately for him, he didn't win La Liga. He went to Barcelona at that time when they won it. Went back to Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona won the league title. He's never won a Champions League. Of course, he won the Europa League with the club as well as the Super Cup. Lost the Copa del Rey final last week. But the way Antoine Griezmann has performed in these last few games, particularly in the Champions League, in today's game, he was dropping deep to receive the ball, acting as an outlet for Atletico Madrid. He was creating chances. You look at the 2 chances he created for Lookman today. He was getting on the end of shots. He had that shot that striked off the crossbar, and you're thinking, what could have been? Antoine Griezmann today, he clean shaved it. He was looking like 2016 Antoine once again, and he rolled back the years in the performances as well. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of Atletico Madrid, but if Antoine Griezmann, this is the last time we're going to see you in the Champions League, I will be supporting you all the way, man. But the pressure didn't stop there from Atletico Madrid. Ademola Lookman had a few glimpses of goal. There was the chances from Molina. And there was even a moment where Lookman kind of finds a narrow lane of space and he receives the ball from Ruggeri. But unfortunately for him, he slips at the most crucial time. And that was a pretty common factor that we saw in this game. Players slipping all over the place. Atletico Madrid have become notorious for this field that they have, that they just refuse to cut. They refused to cut it. Barcelona complained in the last round. Arsenal complained in the last round. Kingsley was slipping and sliding in the round of 16, and they still refused to cut this pitch. Ultimately, it ended up going against them at the end of the day. In this game, when Atletico Madrid scored that goal, you knew that they would be in the ascendancy. And that 15 minutes that they had was their moments to really strike. But they didn't strike. Raya, as I said, stood tall. The defense of Arsenal kind of came out on top in the end, and then Arsenal started to gain a bit more control back into the game. Now, one thing that Arsenal did very well in this game, in my opinion, was they were able to control the game pretty well and kind of have moments where they were penning Atletico Madrid back. Now, of course, in the first half, it led to pretty much nothing. But there were moments in the second half where they felt a bit more threatening. But one thing this game once again showed me, Arsenal don't have enough quality in the attack, man. I mean, some of these players that they have, like Gyökeres, for me, he's not been the best this season. And I think the expectation is pretty high when you go from scoring 100 goals for Sporting Lisbon, as you had done in those last 2 years. But I thought he had a good game today. I thought he made himself a presence up top. I thought he held the ball pretty well. I thought he had pretty neat moments with other players, trying to link up with Zubamendi, with Declan Rice, with Odegaard. I thought he was a presence today. Martinelli and Madueke, other than the little dribbles that Madueke did in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, he did nothing in this game. Martinelli, likewise, nothing. Him and Hikapi on that left-hand side, they were a net negative for Arsenal in the attacking areas of the field. Did next to nothing. And then you look at the players they're bringing on. They're bringing on Trossard, and I'm like, we need to leave these players in the past. Arsenal, if you want to win major trophies, these are not the players. I'm not saying you should have Vinicius Jr. I'm not saying you should have Kvaratskhelia. But Trossard and Martinelli, like, as I mentioned before, Gyökeres, in my opinion, today, he actually offered something to Arsenal. One of his better games, in my opinion, that I've watched in an Arsenal jersey. Not just because you scored a penalty, but I thought, especially in a game like Atletico Madrid away from home, where I've seen many great strikers struggle, he was present. He didn't feel like an anonymous player in this game. And then you take him off for Gabriel Jesus. What is the point of that substitution? Like, that's another player Arsenal needs to leave in the past. Gabriel Jesus is finished at this level. He is not supposed to be playing Champions League semifinals anymore. That was Gabriel Jesus 6 years ago. That is not his level anymore. He's not at that level anymore. And he comes on and he's dropping deep. How does that help Arsenal score a goal? Eberechi Eze is already doing that in the pockets of the game. Of course, Bukayo Saka comes on and he looks like a player who's still struggling with fitness. But I thought Eberechi Eze was the only player that came on for Arsenal today that looked like he actually wanted to do something. You then have that conundrum between Eze and Odegaard. And we talked about Atletico Madrid and what Griezmann offers this team and how well he plays for this side. And all the things that he offers you, not just defensively, but also going forward, creating chances, being a clinical threat, dropping deep, being an outlet. The closest thing Arsenal have to that is Eberechi Eze. They wish they had an Antoine Griezmann. But Eze, in the few moments he was on this game, now, of course, the context is very different. He's coming on as a substitute. He's coming on when Arsenal are a bit in the ascendancy. He's coming on when probably players are a bit more tired. There's a bit more space to work with. But Martin Odegaard, what did he do in this game? What did Martin Odegaard do in this game? And my biggest qualm with I almost said qualm, with Martin Odegaard, right? Because for me, in my eyes, there are two archetypes of midfielders in the midfielders that aren't the defensive or the box-to-box, right? There are two archetypes. You're either a number 10 that doesn't care about defending, a la Hatem Ben Arfa, maybe Griezmann in his younger years. Who else would you even put in that category? But you guys get the ilk of players I'm looking, right? Then you have the number 8s that are able to dictate games, but are also not useless off the ball, i.e. Pedri, João Neves. Players who can dictate football games, but they're actually a net positive defensively. Pedri is not the biggest player in the world. Bernardo Silva, for example. Pedri is not the biggest player in the world, but he offers you something off the ball. Now, I know Martin Odegaard is a great presser, offers you so much pressing-wise. But guys, the guy doesn't create anything attacking. He doesn't take risky passes, or he doesn't make risky passes. He doesn't attempt risky passes. He's trying to dictate the game from deep. But he's a net negative when it comes to physical duels. So it's like, what is the point of Martin Odegaard on this pitch? And I don't mean to I don't mean to slate the guy. I don't mean to heap it onto him. But Eberechi Eze comes on in that second half. It's night and day. It's night and day. And the improvement we see from Eze these past few weeks, I've been very impressed because this is a player who for a long part of the season, it seemed like the guy only cared about the North London derby. If it's not North London derby, I don't care what's happening. But you're starting to see him improve his game in this. And Arsenal, they finish off the game. They look like a side that was content with the 1-1. Atletico Madrid, likewise, after putting in so much effort into this game, they look like they were content with the 1-1. And ultimately now it's just going to go back, all finally poised, back to London. 1-1, as I think most people would have probably expected. I expected this game to probably end 1-1, 0-0, or Atletico sneak an edge to take back to London. But it's ended 1-1, and I think rightfully so. I think both sides weren't the best in the attacking areas, but they were both very good defensively, as you'd expect. It was a complete contrast from the game we saw yesterday, but in its own very unique way. I actually found it kind of compelling. But one question that I have, man, I hate to bring my team up in every single video I do, but guys, how did Barcelona lose to this team? Because genuinely, I was watching the game today, and I sat there, and you guys know my thoughts on Arsenal. If Barcelona just moved the line back a little bit, A little bit. You saw today Atletico Madrid, when they don't have 50 yards to run into, struggle to create chances. Now, I know Arsenal are a much better defensive team than Barcelona, but guys, that first half, there were moments where Atletico Madrid couldn't put together 3 passes. And this is not an Arsenal team that are this invincible side. They're not. I'll just be honest with you, they're not. The way Arsenal played today against Atletico Madrid is the way I saw Arsenal play against Leverkusen a few weeks ago. Yeah, Leverkusen, they huff and puff. Yeah, they have these moments of brilliance. But of course, Atletico have much better players, so those moments of brilliance are a bit more paramount and a bit more apparent in the game. But I felt like Arsenal were pretty comfortable for majority of this game. Other than that first 15, 20 minutes of the second half, I didn't really think they were caused too many problems. And going back to London, you'd expect them to close this out. Should be interesting to see how things go. Of course, Arsenal are going to have a huge fixture this weekend against Fulham that they're going to have to contend with in a title race in the Premier League, while Atletico Madrid will probably rest their entire squad in whatever game they're playing in La Liga this weekend. And it prompts the question because I think one thing you've noticed in the Champions League this season, or in the latter stages, whether it be with Paris Saint-Germain or with Bayern Munich, and now Atletico Madrid, teams who are able to rest their players from the league games are performing much better in the Champions League. It's an epidemic that we've seen very common in games and sports like basketball, for example, where teams are playing 82 games a season. You can't have your best players playing every single game, every single minute. And I think, are we getting to that stage in football where teams are going to have to load manage their players? Teams are going to have to sacrifice the league, for example, to challenge in the Champions League, or vice versa. Teams are going to have to kind of throw away a few games, such as Paris Saint-Germain, who have done in Ligue 1 in the early part of the season, all in the hope that we can rectify when it gets to the business end of the season. Ultimately, in the league, it might not work out for you because if you're 20 points away from the top of the league, then there's nothing you're fighting for at the end of the season. But in a cup competition, i.e. the playoffs in the NBA, you can hold out on your players. You can hold out on those big time moments because you know that that's coming at the end of the season. So it's something interesting that I think might have become a common thing in football, because you look at a team like Arsenal, for example, who are literally playing on all 4 fronts. Of course, I know they got knocked out in the FA Cup, but they're not able to rest their players the way Atletico Madrid are. Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain this weekend are probably going to play B teams in their league games. Some teams don't have that luxury. And is that probably going to have to be a requirement if you want to qualify or if you want to perform at a high level in the Champions League going forward? Should be interesting to see. But of course, as always, let me know you guys' thoughts down in the comment section. What did you make of this game? Did you enjoy this game in its own unique way? Who do you think is going to progress to Budapest in the second leg in London? As always, let me know all your thoughts and a whole lot more. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget, I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I can't do it without your help. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.